So today is one of our old-fashioned or throwback style question and answer sessions instead of an Instagram Live. I've had family court for the past couple of weeks, 3 days of it. Oh, there he is. Okay, and so today, instead of us interviewing an expert, we thought it would be fun. Oh, Chris, I'm letting you in. To interview each other about the experience of family court this week, or actually it was supposed to be last week, but then this morning, those of you that popped in for a second when we were testing the technology might know that I had court this morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time in New York and had this big victory, and I'm so happy. Finally! So, but you know, our case is, as any of our community knows, or our legal abuse support group know, or our clients know, our case has been going on since 2015. So it is now, this month, March, is my 8th year in the legal system. We call ourselves, we came up with the name, I'm a grizzled veteran, right? We have our babies at the beginning and the grizzled veterans, right, Chris?
I always picture the grizzled veterans as being like on the deck of a pirate ship with a peg leg and an eye patch. Right.
Yeah.
They may have some scars, but they're much more seasoned and knowledgeable than the newcomers, the babies.
Right. And that's something that I think the babies and everyone else has to know, is that we've said it many times and in many ways, the truth takes a very long time to come out. And yes, so especially in family court. So people think they're going to go in, be like, I have my story, and they're going to listen to me and they're going to believe me, and they don't. And they walk out of there feeling destroyed, like they've lost, and that's the end. And so part of what Chris and I do is give hope to people and guidance and strategy to show you how the game is long. It's not something that you go in, you go out, and you're done. And even those of us who go in and get the divorce quickly, when you're dealing with a toxic person, you end up dealing with post-separation abuse, often in the legal system, which is called legal abuse or litigation abuse or paper abuse or judicial terrorism or stalking through the court. And that's what I've been dealing with for now starting 8 years. So we figured we'd talk about it.
A lot of times, Lisa, we'll tell our clients, or like people we talk to, if they have a setback, like, you didn't lose, you just haven't won yet. You need to have the perseverance. Not always easy. It's never
I don't know
easy.
if everybody can hear me or not.
What's that?
I said you froze for a second. You're spinning on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Say it again.
So all I said was, we tell people, especially when they suffer a setback in court, you haven't lost. You just haven't won yet. Have the perseverance until the truth comes out. And that's what happens. A lot of people who get beat up in the legal system, it's because they give up before they win.
Yeah. Chris, I can't tell if it's my internet or yours, but you are fading in and out. So I don't know if anyone could just put a comment in. Can you hear Chris fine? Can you hear me fine? Because Chris is like crackling out and spinning on my screen, and I want to make sure that it's working properly. So if you can hear me, go ahead, Chris.
I don't see any comments about that yet, but I think my internet is fine. We'll have to see.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's just keep going. Okay.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, there's a little different format than what we usually do, right? Usually it's either just you most often or both of us interviewing somebody else. But Lisa came up with the idea, since we didn't have somebody lined up for today, for me to interview you. And when we put these questions together, we were thinking about your court situation last week, but you just had a victory today also.
Right. So Chris, I'm seeing you're going in and out, and you're a little bit pixelated on the screen. So hopefully we'll just keep going. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but as long as we can hear you, it's fine. So just keep going.
My internet bill is paid, so I don't know what to do. We'll have to see how the recording looks. Maybe it'll be clear in the recording. Okay. So, yep. So I'll just introduce this. Your case is an active case. It's not settled yet, your case in your home state. And so we're not going to get into specific details. but we'll get into as much as we can without identifying the particulars, the exact things that happen. So that's never a good idea to go public with your stuff while it's still being worked out. So how long, so as far as you finally got a court date last week, you were in for basically 2 days, two big chunks of 2 different days. How long did you wait to get that court date?
So I waited 15 months. And the reason that we wanted to say this question was because a lot of people are like, I had to wait like 6 weeks for a court date. I'm thinking, you waited 6 weeks. I waited 15 months. Part of that had to do with COVID. And part of that had to do with opposing counsel doing what they always do, which is delaying enforcement. So those of you that don't know, I've been representing myself in my home state of Connecticut for more than 4 years and have been doing so successfully. And I've gotten these great orders, but they have not been enforced. So the opposing counsel side, or the defendant side, is to constantly delay. So I think part of waiting 15 months was because his attorney was saying, oh, we need all this time and whatever. But I finally got the date. They tried to cancel it at the last second, as usual. I freaked out, but still plowed through those 2 days. Thank God.
Yeah. There have been many times that I've had to talk you up the ledge like we do for our clients, but when you face delays, oh my God, they filed this thing at the last second. They filed new evidence the morning of the trial, all that stuff.
Right, and I think pause with that, Chris, because our name has been there, got out, and we always say to the people that talk to us individually, like we're been there, got out, like to a major extent, but we're still in it, and we know exactly what it feels like. And at the beginning of every legal abuse support group, I say, yeah, I've had these victories, yeah, I've had Jennifer's Law test, blah 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 blah, but I'm not done yet. And so I feel those same emotions that you do. I still have PTSD. I hate when I see an email from the court or one of X's attorneys where I'm just like, so it still happens. It's just I get through it faster and I know the reality of it, but it still takes someone else to talk me down.
Right. And that's, we've been saying to people lately, this is the been there part of been there, got out, right? We're living it. This is, unfortunately, knock on wood, I haven't been in court in a while, but it always looms. It's always right there. So,
well, I cover it for both of us. Chris, I said I cover it for both of us.
Yeah. So you're pro se. You've been pro se for a while. Why? Why have you decided pro se?
Why am I pro se? Because it cost me $100,000 just to get a divorce in a year when I became best friends with my wonderful attorney. And I have loans that I'm still paying back for that, as well as other loans to cover the debt that my ex has not paid of his share. So I felt like I didn't have a choice. And having a background as a teacher, I think, even though nobody believes this, but I am an introvert. And I feel like the presentation skills I learned, and also as a writer and teaching persuasive writing, it has turned into teaching the art of persuasive argument. So I've been able to use a lot of those skills into being pro se. But I do have help. I do get outside, advice from people and support, obviously. Yeah. But I'm in there on my own.
So what do you think it would have cost if you did have an attorney for this whole time, this particular matter that's been going on for 4+ years?
Well, the whole thing, like I said, is 8. This is the beginning of year 8. So I have talked to multiple attorneys other than the ones that we've interviewed here live. And years ago, it was like, oh, you've saved at least $500,000 in legal fees. In my state, of New York and Connecticut, where the case is, where attorneys are very expensive, it tends to be between $400 something to $1,200 an hour. I've saved probably about $1 million in legal fees.
Crazy, absolutely crazy. Yeah. So with this particular issue that was in court last week, you have years and years of documentation. So how were you able to stay organized and not just go in with piles of paper that you drop on the desk and the judge doesn't know what to do with?
Okay, so that's a great question. Of course, as we were coming up with these questions, we know what you guys are asking too and what you have asked. So this is part of how do I deal with knowing what to present in court? So even though this matter is 4 years worth, it deals with a very specific issue that has to do with very specific financial matter. So I had to be careful to stay razor focused. I did have loads, dozens of exhibits, but I had to get those exhibits in order chronologically. I personally, this is 4 years worth. I started with this academic year for college because the issue has to do with college. And then I went backwards from this year, last year, the year before, and that. And I have to say, I was planning to go in chronological order from beginning to end, but our friend Brian Pakapur, who we've interviewed, who's a California family lawyer, said that what he does is start with the latest and then go backward. Part of the other reason why I started the way I did was because one of the most egregious pieces of evidence happened this academic school year. And so we always tell our clients, you want to start with the thing that really gets their attention, and you want to end with something else that really gets their attention. So I wanted to start with something, the lead, like the jaw-dropping thing that got the judge's attention, and then go through all of the exhibits thereafter.
So how does evidence work?
How does evidence work? Okay, so one thing that everyone also has to realize is that there's something called a code of evidence or evidentiary rule book, whatever it's called in the different states. And everything that you plan to present in court cannot be a surprise. So in Connecticut, you have to submit your evidence at least 5 days beforehand. I wasn't sure if it was business days or just any days. It sounds like it's any days, but personally, I was like, I better get it in like 5 business days. So, and for all of you out there, keep in mind that with your case, if you have a guardian ad litem or a custody evaluator involved and you give evidence to that person may share that with opposing counsel. So you always have to know that whatever you're planning to use in your case is not going to be private. So our court has a website, most courts do, where you can look at your docket, like all of the pleadings on your case. For mine, there's hundreds. And there's also an area where you upload your exhibits. So being pro se, I wasn't really sure what to do because my ex's attorney likes to tell me how things are, and she doesn't often tell me the truth. And I worry because I'm like, she's the authority, she's a lawyer, I'm not. So what I did was I triple checked by calling the court clerk and getting a hold of the supervisor to say, am I doing my exhibits correctly? What else do I need to do? So I did that. It wasn't what that other attorney said, and I made sure to get everything in. But another thing that many courts require is to send an exhibit list to opposing counsel, again, so that they have time to review, so they can't use the argument, which of course was still tried, like, oh, I haven't had a chance to review the evidence. Yes, you did.
Yeah, and so even though you were super organized and you had everything filed correctly, everything like you had, I mean, I saw the binders, it was there. You had like the Post-it notes and the tabs and everything organized and labeled and all that. But you were still totally stressed out, like ahead of these court dates. How come?
Well, because family court is super stressful, especially when you have this huge case. And also, Chris, write down the question, why are attorneys not held liable for lying? Because I want to get to that, but not just yet. So when there's a huge case, it's overwhelming. That's the adjective that we hear from our people all the time. And that's the way that I felt. Like, I know I've been documenting so much, but how do I know what to really, really focus on? I have to admit, there were times I definitely wanted to bring, and I did a little tiny bit, like the domestic abuse stuff in. This judge got very angry when I used it as a question in cross-examination. She said, that's not, the matter today. So be careful, to stay only focused on what it is you're talking about. So because I had so many exhibits and I was like, I don't know where to start, I used you, my partner, and my high conflict divorce coach the Saturday before. Remember, Chris, all through breakfast into the day.
I got 2 meals out of it. I got breakfast and dinner out of that day. So I was well.
I know we were in separate rooms, and what I wanted to do was have someone go through every exhibit with me and make sure it matched up with my binder, matched up with the exhibit list on the court. You want to make sure you have everything really solid, because there is going to be chaos. And a post that I said last week was prepare for chaos. So, I prepared for chaos, and I just thought, I have to stay calm. I always have we tell our clients to have little Post-its, like your own personal Post-its. So mine are like, slow down and control your face. Because I knew that I know the details of my case better than anybody. I've been living this for years. And that's the thing with being pro se. This is your life. This is my life and my details. No attorney that my ex pays cares as much or can memorize the things that I memorize. So I had to have everything there, but I knew I didn't have to worry about remembering anything. It was really just accessing the documentation to back up what I remembered.
So the next question I have on my list is like, what did you/we do that helped? But I want to kind of at least give a partial answer to that myself, because I was there, right, for the entire court thing. I was sitting in,
I know.
you know,
Thank you, Chris.
Courtroom. I was sitting there in the benches. You're welcome. No problem at all. But when you started when your evidence started getting admitted, you had uploaded it to the court's, you know, document system, and that gave it a number. And then as the judge started admitting each document one by one into the court's records, she gave it a different number. And I said, Lisa might not know this. So I'm sitting there with the legal pad and I'm writing down the numbers and matching them up to what you knew they were. Because then when the judge started asking you to go through your exhibits, she used the new numbers, right? And she went in like an order you didn't expect, right? So you're kind of scrambling and flipping around, but I had written down those numbers, you know, so it helped
right,
you get organized.
And your handwritten list was used by me and the judge to stay organized. So the other thing to remember with evidence and exhibits, evidence turns into exhibits. And I think I started with like 133 exhibits, but not all of them came out at that time. More are hope, you know, coming out later as we go back in a couple of weeks. But with every exhibit that you present that the other side's seen, they have a chance to object. So of course, you know, as part of their delaying process is every time I started speaking, opposing counsel interrupted me. Every time I presented a piece of evidence for an exhibit, opposing counsel interrupted me. So much so the judge said, we're stopping, we're not doing this. You have to privately go sit together, like the attorneys, even though I'm pro se, I'm not an attorney, and you need to go through these exhibits and decide what's going to be used as ID, which means it's not a full exhibit, and which is going to be accepted. And so we did that. That took, I don't even know how long. We had the court reporter helping us, the bailiff, the judge left the room. I mean, it was just chaos, but I knew it was going to happen. And again, having that organization ready just I think helped me with my presentation. It helped with my credibility. I felt like very, very professional. So I think that you know, that made me calm down, knowing like everything's in order. We're going to do this. And then luckily, you know, without getting into detail, I'll just say that my evidence got through the way that I wanted it.
Yeah, absolutely. So shifting gears a little bit, and this is another one I'm going to kind of start to answer, and it's what did you wear to court and why? And the part I'm going to answer is your ex showed up and he was very sloppy, didn't even wear a collared shirt. He had, well, the one day he had like work pants. They looked like, what are those pants called? The
Carhartt pants with a white paint stain on the butt, right?
They had paint stains on them. And I was there. I wasn't even involved. I was just sitting in the, you know, in the back. And I wore a suit. I didn't get that flashy. It wasn't like some Gucci, you know, with Rolex.
No, that's
not. I just was nice. I was professional, you know. And so how about you? What did you wear and why?
Okay, well, also let me comment on the ex's appearance. Some people seem to think, especially our exes, that if they show up in what's called a schmata in Yiddish terms, a lot of New Yorkers like to use Yiddish terms. A schmata is a rag. So to me, he showed up in his normal state, like very messy, and that shows disrespect to the judge. Now, often a toxic person thinks that if they show up looking really messy, a judge will think they're really as poor as they portray themselves to be. That doesn't work. He has been reprimanded for that before. So it's always important to come in being very professional. Now, the thing is, being pro se, it's almost like you have to wear two different hats, because you want to appear professional and authoritative like an attorney. So when you want to look like an attorney, attorneys usually wear like a blazer, a skirt, suit, and you wear like navy blue or black because that conveys authority. But as a witness, you want to appear very sweet. So what I did was I had a blazer and then I would take it off, and I had like a little black cardigan that I'd wear with little rhinestone buttons when I was in the witness stand, just to show the difference. Am I moving? All right. Yeah. My
We froze
okay.
for a moment. I don't know if it's you or me. I think it's been going smoothly, but you were talking about the rhinestones on your cardigan, and then that's when you froze to me.
Okay. So let me see if I can actually, if anybody can hear us properly, just type in like fine or something just to make sure that we're still on. The internet's been so crazy lately. All right. Well, I haven't seen anything, so I'm just going to hope that we are and still talk. But you can hear me, right, Chris?
Yes, you're good now.
Okay. All right. So I was saying that, so I had the blazer for when I was being in my attorney role as a pro se, not, again, I'm not an attorney. Okay. Thank you. And then I wore the little cardigan for when I was on the witness stand to appear a little more innocent. We often will tell our clients that when you're on the witness stand, if you're female, and this is the advice that we've got, it's good to wear your hair down and try to look as young and innocent as possible. I'm not sure what a guy is supposed to do, but just look as friendly as possible. Okay, it says we're freezing in and out.
Right, so my attorneys always told me to wear, like, I didn't need to wear a tie, but to wear a white shirt and a navy blazer, or a dark blazer. A couple times I wore a green blazer or something like very, neutral and conservative, but definitely a jacket and dress shirt.
Right. And I remember a few years ago when we were in family relations, which is like court-ordered mediation in our state, my ex showed up in his schmata and the family relations person reprimanded him and said, "You should have worn a white shirt, sir." So it is taken seriously. So what I wore also was like, I like to wear like sexy underwear also, because I just feel better when I do. And I don't have it on now. I should have worn it. I can't believe I didn't wear it for my New York court appearance, but I have a bracelet that it looks like a little brick wall that I always wear on my wrist. And that makes me feel like I have this protection. We often say to our clients that, when you go into court, you should have some kind of talisman or something that makes you feel better. Sometimes people will bring a picture of their kids. And so I wear that bracelet, and I also wear my aunt, she's not alive anymore, but one of my favorite aunts died, and she gave me a pair of vintage, Capezio suede boots that I love. And so I always wear those boots to court because I feel like I'm channeling her strength. So that's what I wore to court the other day.
Okay, so that's what you wore. How about what did you bring with you?
Okay, so what I brought with me was, there's always tons of documentation. So I had 2 huge binders. And so I had one of those little, it wasn't as fancy as opposing counsel because this is her job, but I had like one of those little rolling like luggage things, and I put my binders in there, and then it didn't fit all the way. I couldn't zip it, so I threw the little black cardigan on top, so it still sort of covered it when I had to go through security, but it didn't matter. But it was still like, instead of carrying it and looking all messy, I had the rolling suitcase, and I've done that before, and people usually assume I'm an attorney, which also makes me feel really good because I know I'm playing the part well.
Right. I remember we went out to lunch in between sessions on Friday, and somebody was trying to get our attention. Remember that like weird guy was talking about politics, and he was muttering that I was an attorney. He thought I was an attorney because of the way I was dressed and all that.
Yeah.
Right. So speaking of going through security, what happened outside the courtroom and then later on in the courtroom?
Okay, so this is so crazy. So I haven't been to this court in person in years because of COVID. And so as I was walking into the building, I was like focused on the front door because I was thinking, do we still have to wear a mask? Because a lot of mask restrictions have been lifted in Connecticut. And this man walks by me and he goes, "You're so sick." And I was like, oh my God. Like my first thought is, this is court. People are angry and crazy. Or maybe it's a homeless guy who's just like angry. Because we live near New York City and we're just used to seeing that a lot. And I just turned to look, and it was my ex-husband. And then later, as we were in the courtroom, the judge wasn't there, but when we were doing all the stuff with the other attorney, he started shouting at me. This has happened before multiple times. Bailiffs have had to get involved, but he called me a name, and it was so, he called me this name. I won't say what it is, but he did it in front of his attorney, the bailiff, and the court reporter, and Chris. And the bailiff was this younger woman. And she's like, oh, no, 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 sir. We are not doing that today. She's like, you can leave out of one of two doors. And one was right to a jail cell. So that felt very satisfying that they were on it. And even though those of you who don't know, Chris is 6'3", he's like a really big guy. And that happened like hours before the end of the hearing. But the end of the hearing, we didn't even ask for it. But she said, I am going to come downstairs with you two, and I'm going to contact the person in the parking lot because I want to make sure that your ex has left the grounds before you go into the parking lot. So we really appreciated that because he has been threatening in the past.
Okay, so speaking of the courtroom and what it was like there, was there an audience?
No. Okay, so that's interesting. You know, in the past, when we have hearings, we've had like, when it's just like a general thing, there's like a whole bunch of people in the room, and sometimes people get nervous because it's like, oh, I have an audience and all different lawyers are there. But because it was a hearing that was scheduled on the calendar, it wasn't like an open motion, or I forgot what it's called, but because it was already scheduled, it was private. And sometimes when you have a private hearing, nobody is allowed. But at the very beginning of the proceedings, I said to the court stenographer, you know, I'm here by myself. Is it okay if I have my partner with me and my coach to take notes? And they said, as long as the judge allows it, it's fine. So luckily, this judge did allow it. This was she's not a new judge at all. But she allowed it. So Chris was able to be there, and it was so helpful because, like I said, he took notes, especially on all of those exhibits, and everybody used those notes because everything was happening too quickly for the rest of us. So you were my audience, Chris. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, the only other person I remember being there was the one witness that they called on the second day, and he was just there until he was called, and then he left.
Yes,
right?
yes, this was all, somebody's asking a question. Yeah, we always put the recordings in so you can watch it later because we know it's lunchtime for us and you're going to go in and out. Yeah, you can see it later.
Absolutely.
Okay, keep going,
so
Chris.
what was it like? So aside from those couple of outbursts, you know, what was it like seeing your ex? It had been quite a while, right?
Yeah, I won't say the words that come to mind, but let's say that I think it's a Star Wars creature that's like.
Are the words off brand? Forbid that got out.
They're off. Well, actually, no, they're not off brand, but let's just say there's a character whose name starts with a J and ends with an A, and he's like big and bulbous, and like it looks like he's melting, and that's what my ex looked like.
Science fiction genre. You're talking about.
Kind of. Yeah, but he's just, I mean, you know, I don't see him ever for anything, knock wood, luckily, unless he's stalking, which he's done in the past. So it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't intimidate me to see him. I know it does bother a lot of people to still see their exes in court. I completely understand. I think it was much harder for me, but again, because this is year 8 that we're starting, it doesn't do anything. He's just, it's like, I don't even have any feelings for him, even angry, nothing. It's like, it doesn't matter. The only anger I really feel at this point is toward the legal system for not giving me justice and not giving, deadlines and consequences and enforcing contempts. But it doesn't matter. Seeing him doesn't really affect me.
Right. So how did his attorney behave?
The usual. Let's just say disorganized. Just in case they're watching this.
Right. Do you think that was intentional, part of a strategy? And I guess that's the next question is, what was their overall strategy? The other side, what was their strategy like?
I honestly do not believe that the disorganization is intentional. I think that is the nature of certain types of attorneys. And unfortunately, this line was told to me in the past, you get what you pay for. And I don't think that this attorney cares very much for her client. It's been to my benefit, not being an attorney and having had a successive wins, even at the appellate court level, being against an attorney. And I think that a more organized attorney would have advised him to comply with the orders instead of dragging this on for years and years, because what's happened at this point, especially with what just happened this morning in New York, is that by an attorney not counseling their client properly, they're basically punishing their client. They're financially abusing their client by wasting time. Time turns into money. I have interest on orders that are years old. I have attorney's fees for partial bits that I've had to hire somebody in the other state to help me with. So, you know, it doesn't serve someone well to hire an attorney that doesn't do the best job for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just remember, it's like she tried all these distractions, you know, bringing up stuff that didn't matter. The one witness that I mentioned earlier that took up like half a morning giving testimony that wasn't even relevant to the case. It was just a complete distraction. And they try that all the time. But you mentioned earlier about the other thing she did was she lied about stuff, or she was just conveniently very wrong about things all in her client's favor. But, you know, so why you would have to write down before, like, why are there no consequences when an attorney lies in those situations?
That's such a great question. And that's something that I spent a lot of energy on. And we've said to our clients before is like, and especially in legal abuse support group, we talk about how, and I the same way, like after I'm done with this, I'm going to go after that attorney. They lied about me. They presented all these bad facts. I'm going to get them disbarred. I'm going to file reports. I have dealt with many attorneys in the past several years with this case who have done so many bad things, so many unethical things, but I've learned that I'm too busy with my case to worry about punishing that attorney, because that's not really what matters. What matters is I need to get my goals. I need to get paid. I need to keep my kids safe. I need to make sure the defendant deals with his obligations. So my time is also precious, and I don't really want to spend it dealing with somebody that's no part of my life anymore. So with the false allegations, I mean, all of our clients, most all of our clients have to deal with that. Many people in this community deal with it. You just brace yourself for it. And from our attorney friends that we've talked to in different countries, this happens all over the world, at least in the English-speaking world that we know of. There's certain things that you respond to, and there's certain things that you don't. So there's been times when lies have come through, and they did on the record by officers of the court last week in Connecticut. And I got myself so spun up with like, oh, they're not telling the truth. And then when I had a couple of hours after I got home to think about it, I thought, you know, that actually doesn't really matter because it doesn't affect the case. So I was able to realize that. But in the moment when someone is lying and saying all this stuff, it's like, you just want to correct it. You're not allowed to interrupt. Judges hate that. So you have to just sit there, and it's very hard for me, and very hard for many of our people too, is to control their face. That's why it's on my own personal Post-it note, because I roll my eyes, I shake my head, I throw my hands up. It's, again, being a New Yorker, it's like we're very expressive. So it's hard to sit there and listen to the lies. But if you have an attorney, realize if you trust your attorney will deal with it. And as we know with our interview with Beth Tibbett a couple of weeks ago, she said that good attorneys are very calculated in not responding to false allegations, like not becoming part of the fray. And so I kept that in mind as we were going through that, and I waited my turn. And when the lies came on the record, I stayed calm and I said, well, actually, Your Honor, my next exhibit shows that that's not true. And here it is. Here's the appellate court decision. Here's a transcript of something that she just said didn't happen. And so that harmed not only the other attorney's credibility, she's representing the defendants. That harmed his credibility. So that felt really, really good. And that's why it's so important to be very, very organized. It's like I'm not even good at playing chess, but you think of it like a chess game. You have to always think of several moves ahead. What are they going to do? And how are you going to combat it? You know they're going to lie. You know they're going to give you, make false accusations. So you prepare yourself with whatever evidence you have to combat those accusations. And luckily I was ready, and I feel like I maintained my credibility throughout.
Right. And credibility is everything, right? Credibility is absolutely everything. And the other thing you made me think of is, if you have these lies that don't really affect the case, and you go around putting out the fires like, that was a lie, that was a lie, that was a lie, it distracts from the main point of the case. So you do have to be very strategic and choose, what lies actually affect the outcome, and make sure that you correct those. But all that other stuff, all the noise, because that's what one of their main strategies, not talking specifically about your case, But what we see a lot is they'll, the other side will like wave their hands, go, Your Honor, look over here, shiny object, right? And meanwhile, like the stuff that matters is over here. They're just hoping that, the focus doesn't go to that. Your job, especially as a pro se, but your attorney's job, if you're represented, is to keep the spotlight on that important, relevant evidence and make sure that that gets heard. Right.
Right. And so now I want to touch on a question that we got and that we talked about quickly in our tech test is what happened in New York this morning in terms of that question with false accusations and attorneys that don't tell the truth on the record. So my case is in 2 states. Part of it moved to try to get enforcement. It's still being dealt with. But this morning, huge victory, finally, new judge. Not a kick the can judge, as Judge Anthony Bompiani called the judges that don't want to deal with it and just keep kicking it down the road for someone else to take care of. This judge was not having any of the bluster, was not having any of the accusations. This judge was very much like, let's get this thing settled. Opposing counsel tried his shiny object technique like he always does. The judge actually had to use the broken record technique with the other attorney, which the broken record technique is repeating yourself saying, I don't need to hear that. I don't need to hear that. That doesn't matter. I don't need to hear that. And, it's so interesting when you watch somebody fall apart, like especially a professional where they're like, but judge, but you need to, and then doesn't go anywhere. So I am so happy that finally I did get a judge who said, none of this stuff matters. What matters is getting Lisa's orders enforced immediately. And at the end of this whole thing, which of course, we're leaving out the details, I said, Your Honor, may we make sure to have a deadline and a consequence, which is something that usually is not put into court orders because most people assume that people will follow the law. And the problem with great orders is they mean nothing without teeth, which we've said during many Instagram lives, which we tell our clients, you need to build enforcement language into an order and an agreement, because when you're dealing with a toxic person, they're not going to follow the order. And you want to make sure that you have some clear consequence so that not if you go back to court, when you go back to court, you can say, look at this protective language. It doesn't say reasonable. It says must. It's laid out. Here you go, judge. Makes your job easy. Just do it. And then we're on our way. So again, what happened in New York was a big, big victory for me. I am thrilled. I have hopefully part 1 of the case done. And now we are continuing in the other state to keep moving.
Right. So that was last week, right? And we planned this interview before we knew what happened this morning, right? So I'm going to take this last question, right? So you made progress last week, not a slam dunk victory, but you made progress, and you had a big win this morning.
It's not over. It's not over yet. Mm-hmm.
How do
I feel?
How do you feel?
The screen is not big enough to see me with my arms up doing my Costa Rica victory pose, but I feel awesome. And this is the thing that we tell our people, like, this has taken a while. My ex and many of our exes, they get away with stuff for a long time. They get away with a lot of stuff long before they've met us. They are con artists, pathological liars, often very charming, and people believe them. But as time goes by, as those of us who have the tenacity and strength and support to keep going and present our evidence in a way that finally gets someone's attention, it's very, very satisfying to see those tables turn, to see karma on somebody's face when they are exposed, caught in a lie, their attorneys are caught in a lie, and they're just speechless. It feels really, really wonderful. And that's why, I mean, obviously I'm going because it matters, like this matters for my kids, but those moments of triumph, which I think I said during our interview with Rebecca Ishida the other week on TikTok when we talked about what we do, is those moments are triumph are what keep us going. This is an emotional roller coaster. This takes a long time. We tell all of our clients, again, like I said at the beginning of this is a marathon. You're going to have days where you're just like, I can't do it anymore. And that's when we step in and our group steps in and says, you got to keep going unless it's not worth it for you. and it's just, you know, taking so much away from your life. But often you don't have a choice, because if you give in to these people's demand, they're going to demand more. It's not going to stop. They won't go away. What really makes them stop is when you corner them, which is what's happening in my situation. It's taken a while. I knew it would take a while, and it's happening. So it feels really good. It feels like justice is finally starting to get served. Yes, the keep going part is hard, obviously. Very, very hard. It's hard to believe too.
That's why having like really good support is so important, right? Not just friends and family who love you and care about you, but really don't understand what it's like to be with the toxic person, but also those, we call them Sherpas, right? Like the Himalayan mountain guides, the Sherpas, that people who've been through it, right? People who, or are going through it at the same time you are, who understand. They don't say things like, why doesn't the judge just do this or that? You know, it's the people who really understand what these very different cases are like, and the stamina it takes, and like Lisa said, the tenacity that it takes if you're going to persevere. So,
yeah.
So Lisa, this is like a weird, this little weird dynamic today with me interviewing you. Thank you so much for being my guest.
You're welcome. And I'll see you later.
I hope we can do it again.
We will, I'm sure. All right. So was there any question, Chris? There was a question. Did we answer that already? Any other questions that we didn't answer before we sign off?
Nope, that's it.
Good. All right, so it's covered. So we're going to put the recording on the feed in the next few minutes. And thanks, everybody. And hopefully my experience in family court today and 2 days last week will inspire you to keep going. I'm glad that was helpful. I think you really need to understand that even though family court is a broken system, there's a lot that you can do to take charge of your case and to turn the way the case goes. Even if you have a bad judge, the judges have to follow the law. So keep in mind, it's not just the evidence, it's how the evidence is presented and the atmosphere of the court, and being aware of many factors involved so that you can, so that everyone, let's just say, so that you are believed. That's what really counts. And thank you so much for the congratulations, and we'll see you later.
All right,
Bye.
everybody, take care.